Ori and the Blind Forest is a game that should be right up my alley. It's been recommended to me by friends, and I've read good things about it. It's usually mentioned as one of the great new Metroidvanias out there, often being listed with Hollow Knight, one of my personal all time favorite games. I just recently built a PC and I decided to pick up Ori. I also went ahead and picked up the sequel, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Originally, I was going to do two separate videos, one for each game. I decided to go ahead and do one together though. It will be clear as to why I decided to do that here soon. The video will contain spoilers for both Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps. Now that the obligatory spoiler warning is out of the way, let's get to it. So, Ori and the Blind Forest is a beautiful Metroidvania. The effort that went into designing this gorgeous world cannot be overstated. I love the hand-painted style the game goes for. Everything about the visuals is breathtaking. They never got old either. As soon as I begin to grow tired of the current area I was in, I'd find myself in a new corner of the world and new visuals to googly-eye at. Ori, the wispy little spirit you play as, has a rather minimalistic design. That isn't to say Ori is poorly designed. In fact, I think the very plain look of Ori plays on the strengths of the game world. Whenever emotion needs to be conveyed through the main character, Ori does it with facial expressions and body language. These moments are often backed up by the environment you're currently in and a quality orchestral score. With big budget, gigantic AAA titles that push what consoles and computers can do with graphics, motion capture, voice acting, gameplay, I always have to give it up to the indie titles that do so much with so little. Ori's biggest strength is the way it captivates the player emotionally through its art and sound. I think that's why people connected with Ori and why it's so beloved. I loved everything about that too. On the gameplay side of things, though, I had some big issues that kept me from enjoying the game as much as I wanted to. As I said earlier, Ori is a Metroidvania. Metroidvanias are typically categorized by a couple different gameplay elements. The first being a mixture of side scrolling action and platforming. The second is a non-linear map that gets bigger and more open as you acquire more traversal upgrades. Ori has both of these elements. Typically, what I see with modern Metroidvanias is a heavier focus on either the combat or platforming. Ori definitely goes heavy on the platforming side of things. When I first started playing, I had a feeling it was going to be more traversal focused. I could just tell by how light as a feather Ori felt and the general design of the map. This isn't a bad thing either. In fact, the platforming and traversal aspects of Ori's gameplay are pretty good. Once you get a few hours in and start unlocking more skills, your movements become quick, elegant, and fun to pull off. Where Ori fails is the combat portion of the Metroidvania. The combat is just a mess. As I was playing, I found myself asking why they even put it in. I think Ori would have been a much better game if they took out most of the combat elements and focused on being a great platformer. It just kinda sucks. I often find myself describing good gameplay combat as having a weight to it. Well, there is no weight to be had here. For the first couple hours or so, you have this little orb that follows you around. The orb shoots projectiles at most of the uninspired looking enemies. Those enemies either shoot orbs back or try to jump on you. Most of my early time spent with Ori's combat was standing near a ledge and smashing the X button until the blob or frog or whatever was dead, and hope I can get back to the fun part soon. Thinking about the enemy design here, I'm just kinda surprised, honestly. With such an emphasis on an otherwise beautiful environment, I find myself asking why fill it with such bland enemies. Ori's design is rather minimalistic, sure, but Ori always pops. Most of the enemies you will encounter, save for a few exceptions, are blobs that shoot blobs at you. After I'd say a couple hours or so, you do get a new ability that I thought would make this all kinda work. Basically, Ori can freeze time for a second after countering a projectile and enemy attack, and essentially bounce off the enemy, knocking it back. This is used in combat, and traversal as well, and it's pretty fun and satisfying as a mechanic. In fact, the two enemies that stand out the most for me are directly tied to this mechanic. You have these roly-poly looking bugs that roll towards you. You can't really damage them, and if you get hit, you're pretty much dead. So, you have to use the move you get to counter them and throw them off a ledge, or slam them into a wall or another enemy. Sometimes they're used for solving puzzles. The other one are these birds that fly around and charge at you. Some parts have Ori dashing off of multiple birds at once, while at the same time dodging environmental hazards and progressing through the level. These enemies play off the platforming and the environment, and I wish Ori had more enemies like this instead of the dozen types of blobs we got. Combat-heavy parts of the game are often placed in between great platforming sections. They usually put Ori at a disadvantage. Narrow corridors, sometimes the art visually impairs you from pulling off an attack or dodge. It's just all around frustrating and happened often enough to deflate my enjoyment of an otherwise great experience. It always sucked to struggle getting past a certain difficult part only to get dragged into a combat section, die, and have to go back and do it all over again. On that note, let's talk about the saving system. You get to make your own. If you have enough energy, and you almost always have enough energy, you can basically create a save point. I kinda hated it at first because I'd always forget to make one, but once I started remembering to use it, I grew to enjoy it. It's great to experience a difficult section, fail, then when you try the next time, pop a save point down in front to minimize or completely rid yourself of backtracking. The absolute best moments of Ori 1 have to be the escape sequences. Whenever you're about to finish a major area in the game, the world itself becomes the boss. The one I'm showing right now is the first one in the game, and it's absolutely wonderful. I feel like the game kinda knows the combat is lame, so they came up with these excellent scripted platforming segments where you're trying to get out of the area you were exploring before everything comes crashing down. I like this because of the clever way the environments and platforming are utilized. It's a creative way to do a boss fight without an actual boss fight, and they always end with a bang. I think what bothers me about Ori Part 1 is that it's a decent game that could have been outstanding. Unlike other YouTubers and even just other people, I have a hard time not enjoying something. In fact, when I love a game, I feel like sometimes I have to really go hunting for any flaws. Part of the reason why I started making videos was to help myself develop a more critical eye when it comes to games and gaming in general. Ori and the Blind Forest doesn't suck, not by any means, but I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Sometimes I simply did not like playing through it. All that said, I heard that maybe other people felt the same way I did, and then something amazing happened. I started playing Ori 2. Ori 2 brought the heat this time around. It's everything a sequel should be. Improve on what worked, get rid of what didn't work, and add new elements that do work. Ori 2 completely overhauls the combat in the best way possible. Instead of a passive little orb that shoots other orbs, you get a freaking lightsaber looking thing. That weight is added. I feel like the devs may have played Hollow Knight in between Ori 1 and 2 because the influence is all over the place in Ori 2. The environments are even bigger and more picturesque this time around. There are new platforming elements and traversal upgrades that work well with the old ones from the previous game. Both the old and the new now flow together with the combat as well. Now you can use that counter dash move from 1 to slam into an enemy, do a sword combo, use the grapple ability, do another sword combo, and go back into another dash counter. There's also an additional dodge, different weapon types such as a hammer, bow, and spear. There's both melee and range combat you can chain together, and when it all does come together, The elegance and fun the first game's platforming gave me shines through in the combat as well. There are multiple abilities you can unlock that give Ori more attacks and skills. You have charms you can equip that help with platforming and combat. You can sort of customize Ori to how you want your Ori to be. There's also a whole lot more enemy types in Ori 2. Although the blobs aren't completely absent from Ori 2, I can forgive that because for every pink blob, there's a whole new enemy type for me to face off against. Aerial flying insects slamming into you, stingers out, giant tough guy looking beasts trying to crush you, crabs and crustaceans, these snake looking flower things. So much more is on offer here, and it's all great. I cannot emphasize enough how much better this game felt for me to play. I had previously heard they improved the combat from Ori 1 in the sequel, but I was not expecting it to be completely overhauled like it was. There are now more traditional boss fights as well, however, they did not throw out the escape segments. In fact, bosses will go back and forth between a standard 2D Metroidvania boss encounter to those escape sequences. You're fighting a giant monster and they crash into a wall, so Ori has to run through some crumbling tunnels, avoiding falling boulders and a deadly enemy who's never too far behind. Again, I find myself shocked at just how much better everything is. Ori 2 now has side quests and a town building portion. Basically, there's a sort of hub area you can use items found in the world to rebuild a town one piece at a time. This was always fun because the closer the hub area gets to being finished, the more things you can unlock while exploring it. There are now time trials and combat gauntlets as well. Basically, you unlock a shrine that connects to another shrine, and you have to race a shadow version of Ori to receive a reward. Combat gauntlets have you facing a couple waves of enemies to unlock additional charm slots. Both of these play to the strengths of the game. The time trials are fun because you get to push the platforming further, and I found myself getting better and using all of my abilities together when doing them. The gauntlets just stick Ori in a small to medium-sized room and tell you to go nuts. Remember when I said it's hard for me not to enjoy something? I honestly have a hard time finding the bad in Ori 2, especially in comparison to the first one. The only two things that come to my mind are the difficulty and the removal of the save mechanic. It may be that I played both of these games back to back and I just got better as I went, but I found Ori 2 significantly easier than Ori 1. That isn't to say there aren't challenging parts that tested me by any means, but I've found the first one much harder. I don't think a game being hard is an end-all be-all for a game either, so that will be completely preferential to players. As for the save game mechanic where you could create your own checkpoints, it's taken out. Removed completely. I was kind of bummed because I was just getting used to it towards the end of 1, but honestly, when I die the game usually puts me back where I most likely would have put my checkpoint anyway. Overall, my experience with the two Ori games was far more positive than negative. I wasn't expecting that after 1, but my bad experience with it gave me the opportunity to really appreciate what it means to be a good sequel. Ori 2 has definitely earned a spot with me when people talk about the great indie Metroidvanias. I'm looking forward to other titles in the series, or maybe a completely different game from Moon Studios. Would I recommend playing them both? Well, kinda. Sometimes it helps to see where something began to appreciate where it ended up. If you've never played Ori and the Blind Forest, pick it up, and if you're having the same frustrations I had, I'd suggest looking at it more like a proof of concept. If it doesn't work for you and you absolutely want to love it but just can't, I'd still recommend giving Will of the Wisps a try. It's a great game worthy of anyone's time. Thanks for watching.